There are moments in life when our dreams seem too distant, like faint stars barely visible on a foggy night. We stand there, gazing upward, overwhelmed by the enormity of what we wish to achieve, feeling paralyzed by the gap between where we are and where we long to be. Most people, when faced with such towering aspirations, believe that only dramatic, sweeping actions can bridge the distance. They wait for a perfect opportunity, a miraculous burst of motivation, or a life-altering breakthrough. Yet, in that waiting, days turn into months and months into years, while the dream remains untouched, gathering dust in the corners of their imagination. But what if this entire way of thinking is flawed? What if real, lasting transformation does not come from explosive moments of change, but rather from the small, almost invisible steps we take every single day? Steps so minor that they hardly register at first, yet so consistent that, over time, they become the foundation for something extraordinary. Today, we embark on a different kind of journey, one that doesn't ask you to leap, but a step, that doesn't demand you to revolutionize your life overnight, but invites you to trust in the quiet, powerful momentum of small actions. You don't have to wait until you feel ready. You don't have to be perfect, fearless, or flawless to begin. You only need to take the first small step, and then another and another, building a rhythm that eventually becomes unstoppable. In the pages ahead, you will discover how tiny habits, simple, manageable choices, have the potential to reshape your destiny. You will learn why the life you dream of isn't a result of grand transformations, but of tiny decisions accumulated day after day, year after year. And most importantly, you will understand that the power to change your life is already within you, waiting quietly for you to start. The journey to your best self does not begin with a giant leap into the unknown. It begins with a small, steady step taken today and another tomorrow, and the unwavering belief that even the smallest of actions, when repeated, can move mountains. Every major transformation in life, though often celebrated in moments of glory, is almost always the result of countless small decisions made in the quiet, unseen corners of daily life. Picture an airplane taking off from New York, destined for Los Angeles. If the pilot shifts the nose of the plane by just 1 degree south, no one on board would notice any difference at the start. The plane would still ascend into the same sky, passing through the same clouds. But over the course of the journey, that tiny adjustment would send the aircraft hundreds of miles off course, arriving not in Los Angeles, but somewhere deep in Mexico. A minor shift at the beginning, insignificant to the naked eye, creates a massive divergence over time. Life mirrors this principle in ways we rarely recognize. The small decisions we make each day, whether to drink water instead of soda, to read for 5 minutes instead of scrolling mindlessly through our phones, to have a difficult conversation instead of avoiding it, are the true architects of our future. On their own, these choices feel trivial, almost laughable in their simplicity. Yet compounded over months and years, they steer the trajectory of our lives just as surely as a pilot's slight adjustment steers a plane across a continent. Success is rarely a thunderclap event. It is not the product of one dazzling moment of inspiration or a single heroic effort. Instead, it is the slow, steady accumulation of tiny wins, day after day, choice after choice. Conversely, failure does not arrive overnight. It creeps in quietly, one small concession at a time. The skipped workout, the forgotten promise, the ignored opportunity, until suddenly we find ourselves far from where we intended to be. Understanding the compounding nature of small actions changes everything. It dismantles the myth that greatness requires grand gestures or superhuman effort. It replaces it with a quieter, more powerful truth that every decision, no matter how small, either pulls us closer to the life we desire or pushes us further away. It reminds us that the habits we build today are not just shaping our days, but are constructing the very architecture of our future selves. The beauty of this reality is that it grants agency back to the individual. You do not need to overhaul your entire existence, to create meaningful change. You simply need to choose differently in the small moments, the moments so easy to overlook that stack upon one another to forge an entirely new reality. It is in these micro choices, seemingly inconsequential today, that the seeds of a dramatically better life are planted. Recognizing the power of these tiny decisions is the first step toward reclaiming your life's direction. It shifts your focus from chasing monumental milestones to mastering the art of small, intentional actions. And it sets the stage for a future that, while built one modest choice at a time, holds the promise of extraordinary transformation. Every behavior we repeat, whether empowering or destructive, operates through an invisible mechanism known as the habit loop. Understanding this loop is crucial because habits, for better or worse, govern the vast majority of our daily actions. Research suggests that up to 40% of our behaviors are not deliberate decisions, but automatic routines triggered by our environment, emotions, or circumstances. It is not willpower that sustains us day after day. It is the systems we have unconsciously built around ourselves. If we wish to reshape our lives, we must first learn how these systems operate. At its core, every habit follows a four-step pattern: cue, craving, response, and reward. These stages work together like a well-oiled machine, silently guiding us from one behavior to the next without requiring conscious thought. The cue is the trigger that signals your brain to initiate a behavior. It is the starting gun that launches the habit loop into motion. Cues could be external, like seeing a plate of cookies on the kitchen counter, or internal, like feeling stressed after a long day. They're the brain's way of predicting what to do next based on context and past experience. Recognizing your personal cues is the first key to gaining control over your habits. Following the cue comes the craving, the motivational force behind every behavior. Cravings are not about the action itself, but about the change in emotional state that the action promises. You do not crave brushing your teeth. You crave the feeling of a clean, fresh mouth. You do not crave scrolling through social media. You crave the brief distraction and dopamine rush that scrolling provides. Every craving is linked to a desire for internal transformation, however small or fleeting. The third stage is the response, the actual behavior you perform. Depending on the strength of the craving and the difficulty of the response, this step may or may not occur. If the effort required outweighs the reward perceived, the behavior will likely be abandoned. This is why making good habits easy and bad habits difficult is a cornerstone strategy for behavioral change. Finally, we reach the reward, the positive reinforcement that teaches your brain that the behavior is worth remembering and repeating. Rewards close the habit loop, providing satisfaction and a sense of achievement. They also strengthen the neural pathways associated with the behavior, making it more automatic over time. The more immediate and satisfying the reward, the faster the habit becomes ingrained. Understanding these four components is not just an academic exercise. It is a blueprint for change. If you want to create a new habit, you must deliberately design each part of the loop to work in your favor. To build a positive habit, make the cue obvious. Place visual reminders where you can easily see them. If you want to drink more water, keep a filled water bottle on your desk. If you want to exercise, lay out your workout clothes the night before. Visibility removes friction between intention and action. Next, make the craving attractive. Link the new behavior to positive emotions or a compelling vision of your future self. If exercising feels like punishment, it will always be a battle. But if you associate it with the pride of becoming a stronger, more energetic version of yourself, the craving grows stronger, pulling you toward the behavior. Then, make the response easy. Lower the barrier to entry as much as possible. Instead of committing to an hour-long workout, promise yourself just 5 minutes. Often, starting is the hardest part. Once in motion, continuing becomes natural. Finally, make the rewards satisfying. Celebrate your small wins. Track your progress visibly. Give yourself a genuine sense of accomplishment, however minor. Reinforcement accelerates habit formation far more effectively than guilt or self-criticism. Conversely, if you seek to break a harmful habit, invert the strategy. Make the cue invisible by removing triggers from your environment. Delete distracting apps from your phone. Avoid aisles in the grocery store that sell junk food. Out of sight often truly is out of mind. Make the craving unattractive by reframing the behavior. Focus on the negative long-term consequences rather than the fleeting short-term pleasure. Make the response difficult by adding friction, unplugging your television, locking away temptations, or committing to accountability partners. Finally, make the reward unsatisfying by connecting the bad habit with disappointment or regret, reminding yourself of the higher cost it extracts from your future. Another often overlooked factor is the role of environment. It is easier to change your surroundings than to rely on willpower. If your home is filled with books and instruments, you're more likely to read and create. If it is filled with fast food and endless screens, you are more likely to indulge and distract. Shape your environment, and you shape your destiny. Habits are not moral judgments. They are simply patterns, imprinted by repetition, reinforced by rewards, and steered by cues and cravings. They do not reflect your worth or willpower. They reflect your systems. If you want different results, build different systems. When you understand the anatomy of a habit, you reclaim control over the invisible forces that govern your life. You realize that change is not reserved for the extraordinary. It is available to anyone willing to design better loops, one small step at a time. And in doing so, you begin to transform not only your actions, but your identity, crafting a future that once seemed unreachable. Most people, when seeking change, start by focusing on outcomes. They tell themselves, I want to lose 20 pounds, or I want to speak English fluently, or I want to save more money. While setting goals may seem like the logical first step, this approach often leads to frustration and disappointment. Goals focus on what you want to achieve, but real, lasting change comes not from focusing on outcomes, but from reshaping the person you believe yourself to be. The root of behavior is identity. Every action you take is a reflection of the type of person you believe you are, or the type of person you're trying to become. If your behaviors are misaligned with your self-image, your efforts at change will always feel like a battle. You might force yourself into new habits temporarily, but without a deeper transformation, you inevitably fall back into old patterns. Consider two individuals attempting to quit smoking. The first person says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." The second says, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." The first identifies still as a smoker, struggling to change. The second has already redefined their identity, and the behavior naturally follows. The shift from "I am trying" to "I am" changes everything. Your identity drives your habits, and your habits reinforce your identity. It is a two-way street, a self-reinforcing loop. The more you act in alignment with the person you want to become, the stronger that identity grows, making future actions feel natural rather than forced. Thus, the fundamental question is not, what do I want to achieve, but rather, who do I want to become? Do you want to become a healthy person, or merely someone who completes a diet plan? Do you want to become a lifelong learner, or simply pass a language exam? Do you want to be financially wise, or just save enough to survive the next emergency? True transformation happens when change becomes an expression of who you are, not merely a means to an end. To initiate identity change, you must first consciously choose the kind of person you want to be. It is not about chasing outcomes. It is about embodying values. Ask yourself what kind of person achieves the outcomes you desire. If you want to run a marathon, become the kind of person who laces up their running shoes every morning. If you want to write a novel, become the kind of person who sits down and writes a few sentences every day, no matter how imperfect. Identity is not built through grand declarations. It is crafted through the small, consistent choices you make every single day. The process of identity change is simple but not easy. It follows a clear path. 1. Decide the person you want to be. Reflect on your values. What principles do you want your life to embody? What qualities do you admire in others and wish to cultivate within yourself? 2. Prove it to yourself with small wins. Every action, no matter how small, is a vote for the type of person you want to become. When you study one English phrase, you are voting for I am a language learner. When you choose a healthy meal over fast food, you're voting for I am someone who prioritizes my health. It is not about perfection. It is about consistently casting votes for your desired identity. Over time, as the evidence accumulates, your belief in yourself strengthens. Identity is not something you simply decide to have. It is something you build brick by brick through repeated actions. This is why goals alone often fail. A goal is an external marker. Identity is an internal compass. Goals can be abandoned once achieved, or if progress feels too slow. Identity, on the other hand, becomes a part of you. It defines how you show up in the world, how you think, and how you act, even when no one is watching. Imagine two different paths. The first path focuses solely on achievement. You aim to run a marathon, so you force yourself through training. You succeed, you cross the finish line, and then you stop running altogether. The behavior is tied only to the goal, not to your sense of self. The second path focuses on identity. You decide to become a runner. You train, you run the marathon, and after it's over, you keep running because running is simply who you are now. It is not an act you perform. It is an extension of your identity. This distinction matters because life is not a one-time race. It is an ongoing journey. Identity-driven change is sustainable because it endures beyond individual milestones. It becomes resilient to setbacks, adaptable to circumstances, and aligned with a deeper sense of purpose. To begin transforming your identity, start with the smallest, most manageable actions that align with the person you wish to become. Do not wait until you feel fully confident or completely ready. Confidence is a result of action, not a prerequisite for it. Each small success builds credibility with yourself, reinforcing the belief that you are, indeed, becoming the person you aspire to be. And when setbacks inevitably occur, and they will, identity keeps you anchored. If you skip a workout, you do not say, I failed. You say, I'm a healthy person who missed one session, and tomorrow I return. If you stumble in learning a new language, you do not conclude, I am bad at this. You affirm, I am a learner, and every mistake is part of my growth. Identity first, results later. That is the way lasting change is built, not through sheer force of will, but through deliberate, consistent action aligned with a vision of who you are becoming. Ultimately, you are always in the process of becoming someone. Every choice you make today is a step toward a future version of yourself. The question is not whether you're changing, but who you're changing into. Choose with intention, act with purpose, and become, day by day, the person you were always meant to be. While understanding the theory behind habit formation is essential, real transformation requires practical tools, methods you can apply immediately to build new habits and reinforce the identity you're striving toward. Knowledge alone does not change lives, action does. Fortunately, there are simple but powerful techniques that make building better habits easier, more reliable, and more enduring. One of the most effective tools is the 2-minute rule. The principle is elegantly simple. When starting a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to complete. The brilliance of this approach lies in its acknowledgement of human nature. Often, the hardest part of any task is simply starting. Overwhelmed by the enormity of a goal, people procrastinate, rationalizing their avoidance with excuses about timing, energy, or readiness. The 2-minute rule circumvents this inertia by making the initial action so small that resistance melts away. Instead of committing to reading a book for an hour, commit to reading 1 page. Instead of vowing to overhaul your diet, commit to eating 1 piece of fruit. Instead of promising to master English vocabulary in a month, commit to learning a single word today. By making the barrier to entry laughably low, you shift the focus from performance to consistency. And once the action is underway, momentum takes over. A person who reads 1 page often reads 2, then 5, then 10. A person who laces up running shoes for a 2-minute jog often ends up running for 20 minutes. Starting is everything. Another potent technique is habit stacking. Humans are creatures of routine. Every day is a sequence of interconnected behaviors, often performed in predictable patterns. Habit stacking leverages these existing routines by attaching a new desired behavior to a well-established one. The formula is straightforward. After current habit, I will new habit. For example, after pouring your morning coffee, you might review one English word. After brushing your teeth, you might meditate for 1 minute. After parking your car at work, you might write down 3 things you're grateful for. By linking new habits to existing ones, you create natural anchors that make remembering and executing the new behavior almost effortless. Over time, the new habit becomes just as automatic as the old one. Habit stacking also reinforces the concept of environment design. If your environment supports your goals, habits form more naturally. If you want to practice guitar, leave the instrument out where you can see it. If you want to drink more water, keep a bottle on your desk within easy reach. Convenience matters more than willpower. What is easy gets done. What is difficult gets delayed. Another practical strategy is to focus on small wins. In a culture obsessed with instant gratification and dramatic transformations, the power of incremental progress is often overlooked. Yet it is the accumulation of tiny victories that ultimately reshapes your life. Small wins build momentum. They create a sense of achievement, however minor, that fuels further action. They shift your identity from someone who struggles to someone who succeeds, one step at a time. Learning 5 new English words a day may not seem impressive, but over a year, that adds up to 1,825 new words, a vocabulary expansion capable of transforming your fluency. Running for 5 minutes a day might not feel significant, but compounded over months, it builds stamina, discipline, and a profound sense of personal growth. The psychological effect of small wins is profound. Each small success triggers a positive emotional response, releasing dopamine in the brain, the same chemical associated with pleasure and reward. This neurochemical reinforcement makes you more likely to repeat the behavior. Success breeds motivation, not the other way around. To maximize the impact of small wins, track your progress visibly. Use a habit tracker, a simple notebook, or an app. The act of recording your achievements creates a visual proof of consistency that further motivates you to keep going. Watching the chain of successful days grow longer becomes its own source of satisfaction, tapping into the powerful psychological principle of not wanting to break a streak. It is equally important to make your rewards immediate and satisfying. Human brains are wired to respond more strongly to immediate outcomes than delayed ones. Therefore, pairing new habits with instant, positive reinforcement strengthens the habit loop. After completing a workout, allow yourself a few minutes to relax and enjoy a favorite song. After finishing a study session, savor a quiet cup of tea. The reward does not have to be extravagant. It just needs to feel good enough to signal to your brain, this was worth it. Finally, be ruthlessly patient with yourself. Building new habits is not about perfection. It is about persistence. There will be days when motivation is low, when the new habit feels like an unwelcome burden. Expect these days. Plan for them. Accept them not as failures, but as inevitable friction points on the path to mastery. Set the bar low enough that you can maintain forward momentum even on your worst days. If your goal is to practice a language daily, and one day you only have the energy to review a single phrase, that still counts. If your goal is fitness, and you manage only a few minutes of stretching instead of a full workout, that still counts. Consistency is built not on the days when everything goes perfectly, but on the days when you show up despite imperfection. In the end, practical tools like the 2-minute rule, habit stacking, small wins, and environmental design are not just techniques. They're lifelines. They are the bridges between intention and action, between who you are today and who you are capable of becoming. Mastering small habits is not about changing what you achieve. It is about changing who you are. And it begins always with one small, deliberate step. No journey of growth is a straight, unbroken line. No matter how motivated or disciplined you are, there will be moments when life gets in the way. Illness, travel, unexpected obligations, sheer exhaustion. These disruptions are inevitable. The real question is not whether you will stumble, but how you will respond when you do. Success is not determined by perfection. It is determined by resilience. Understanding this truth reframes setbacks not as failures, but as expected parts of the process. It liberates you from the destructive, all-or-nothing thinking that causes so many to abandon their goals at the first sign of inconsistency. One missed workout, one skipped study session, one day of unhealthy eating. These isolated events are not fatal flaws. They are bumps on a much longer road, and they only become problems if you allow them to multiply. The most powerful tool for navigating setbacks is a simple principle known as the 2-day rule. Never miss a habit 2 days in a row. Missing one day is understandable. Life is unpredictable. Missing 2 days, however, establishes a new, undesirable pattern, one where not acting becomes the norm. The 2-day rule prevents a temporary lapse from becoming a permanent regression. Applying the 2-day rule requires vigilance and honesty. If you miss a workout on Monday, you make absolutely sure that on Tuesday, even if you feel tired, even if it's just a 10-minute walk, you show up. If you forget to study on Wednesday, then on Thursday, even if it's just reviewing one flashcard, you engage with the habit. The action does not need to be heroic, it only needs to exist. The momentum must be preserved. This mindset shift, viewing success as showing up rather than excelling, creates an extraordinary foundation for long-term consistency. It acknowledges that excellence is built not on isolated bursts of effort, but on sustained presence through both highs and lows. It fosters a relationship with habits based on commitment rather than emotional whims. Whether you feel motivated or uninspired, energized or exhausted, you honor your commitment by taking some form of action. There's also profound psychological value in maintaining continuity. Every time you show up after a setback, you send a powerful message to yourself. I am someone who perseveres. I am someone who honors my promises, even when it's difficult. These micro-recoveries, moments when you get back on track quickly, build self-trust, resilience, and grit. Over time, they sculpt an identity not just of a person who succeeds, but of a person who refuses to quit. Equally important is the need to approach setbacks with compassion rather than self-criticism. Too often, when people stumble, their internal dialogue becomes harsh and unforgiving. They berate themselves for their shortcomings, magnifying the damage and making it emotionally harder to resume progress. This is counterproductive. Shame and guilt rarely foster growth. They paralyze it. Instead, adopt a mindset of curious reflection. When you miss a habit, ask yourself, what circumstances contributed to the lapse? Was it poor planning, unrealistic expectations, external disruptions? What can be adjusted moving forward to make the desired behavior easier to maintain? Approaching setbacks as data points rather than moral failings transforms them into valuable learning experiences. Sometimes, maintaining consistency requires adjusting your expectations and strategies. Life is dynamic. The same routine that worked last month may no longer fit today's realities. Flexibility is not weakness, it is wisdom. When your schedule tightens, adapt your habits to fit the available time and energy. Shrinking the size of a habit temporarily is far better than abandoning it altogether. For example, if a busy workweek makes it hard to attend your usual gym sessions, commit to doing 15 minutes of bodyweight exercises at home instead. If travel disrupts your usual study environment, review vocabulary flashcards on your phone during downtime. Shrinking does not mean giving up. It means preserving the thread of consistency until you can expand it again. Another strategy for resilience is pre-commitment. Before challenges arise, decide how you will respond. Create an if-then plan. If I miss a day of studying, then I will review for 10 minutes the next day. If I cannot run in the morning, then I will do stretching exercises in the evening. Pre-commitment reduces the burden of decision-making in difficult moments and makes recovery automatic. The 2-day rule, combined with self-compassion, flexible adaptation, and pre-commitment creates an unbreakable system for navigating life's inevitable turbulence. It transforms the goal from never falling to always rising. It shifts your definition of success from flawless execution to relentless resilience. Ultimately, setbacks are not the enemy of progress. They are part of the terrain. Expect them, prepare for them, and when they come, meet them not with despair, but with quiet determination. The path to greatness is not reserved for those who never falter. It is reserved for those who keep moving forward, one small, stubborn step at a time. The life you are living today is the result of countless small decisions made over days, months, and years. Every choice, every habit, every belief you have nurtured has woven itself into the fabric of who you are now. If you pause and trace the path backward, you will see the quiet power of accumulation, not in dramatic moments of change, but in the steady, often invisible shaping of your future self. This understanding carries with it a profound truth. You are not a passive participant in your story. You are its author. You are its architect. Every day, whether consciously or not, you are designing the blueprint of the life you will step into tomorrow. For many, this realization is both exhilarating and terrifying. It removes the comforting illusion that fate or circumstance alone dictate outcomes. It places the pen firmly in your hands. It tells you that while you may not control every event that happens to you, you have absolute control over the narrative you choose to build from those events. You may not choose the weather, but you choose how you navigate the storm. When you recognize yourself as the architect, you realize that small actions are not meaningless. They are the bricks and mortar of the life you are constructing. Each time you choose to exercise instead of procrastinate, to study instead of scroll, to invest instead of spend frivolously, you are laying down a stronger, more resilient foundation. Each time you default to laziness, fear, or indulgence, you allow cracks to form. The structure you build is never static. It is either strengthening or weakening with every decision. Great architects do not build magnificent structures by accident. They begin with a vision, a clear, vivid understanding of what they wish to create. They lay foundations with care. They revise plans when necessary. They anticipate challenges, adapt to them, and press onward with patience and precision. Your life deserves the same intentionality. Start with a vision. Ask yourself not merely what you want to have or achieve, but who you want to become. Picture that future self in as much detail as possible. How do they think? How do they act under pressure? How do they treat others? How do they honor their values? A vague aspiration leads to vague results. A vivid identity fuels vivid transformation. Once the vision is clear, anchor it with action. Do not wait for motivation to strike or circumstances to align perfectly. Action precedes clarity and confidence. Start now, wherever you are, with whatever you have. Begin with the smallest step that points toward your vision, and then take another and another. Trust that each small movement forward matters. Patience will be your greatest ally. In a world obsessed with instant gratification, building something meaningful requires a radical commitment to delayed rewards. Progress may seem invisible for days, weeks, even months. Like bamboo growing underground for years before it bursts forth in a towering height, your early efforts may feel thankless. Persist anyway. The roots you are strengthening beneath the surface will one day support a growth so rapid, so undeniable, that will seem miraculous to those who did not witness the quiet work you invested when no one was watching. Resilience will be your shield. There will be days when doubt creeps in, when setbacks threaten to derail you, when old habits beckon with their familiar comfort. Understand that these moments are not failures. They are part of the process. Each time you recommit after a stumble, you are forging a stronger, more unbreakable character. Grit is not forged in moments of ease, but in the crucible of struggle. Self-compassion will be your foundation. Speak to yourself with the same encouragement you would offer a dear friend. Reject the toxic narrative that mistakes define your worth. Mistakes are simply markers of effort, evidence that you are daring to grow. Treat yourself with grace, not indulgence, with kindness, not complacency. Gratitude will be your compass. Celebrate every small win, every inch of progress, every step taken in the right direction. Gratitude transforms the journey from a burden into a blessing. It reminds you that even the hardest days are opportunities, not obstacles, to become the person you were meant to be. Above all, believe in the power of consistent, imperfect action. Do not wait to feel ready. Do not demand certainty before moving forward. Growth demands faith, faith that your efforts will matter even when results are not yet visible. Faith that each act of discipline and courage is carving a path where none existed before. You are the architect. You are the builder. You are the living proof that small habits, anchored by powerful identity and executed with unwavering patience, can erect a life more magnificent than anything you once believed possible. Your future is not something you stumble into by chance. It is something you shape day by day with intention, with courage, and with relentless love for the person you are becoming. Pick up the tools. Trust the process. Lay the next brick. Build the life you were born to live. It starts today. It starts now. And it starts with you. Thank you for taking the time to walk this journey with me today. If you found value in these ideas, if something sparked a shift in the way you see yourself or your potential, then I invite you to keep building this momentum with us. At Epic English Stories, we believe that learning and growing should be an adventure, a daily commitment to becoming just a little better, a little stronger, and a little more courageous than yesterday. Every week, we share powerful stories and lessons designed to help you not only improve your English, but also transform your life one small step at a time. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving a like. It's a small action, but just like the habits we've talked about today, small actions add up to make a big difference. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss a story that could change the way you think, feel, and live. And most importantly, I would love to hear from you. What is one small habit you are committing to today? Drop it in the comments below. Your decision might just inspire someone else to take their first step too. Remember, you are the architect of your future. And every great story, every great transformation begins with a single, powerful choice. Until next time, keep believing, keep building, and keep writing your epic story.